Now for part 2, Alpha and Omega, Christ of the order of Melchizedek. At the present time, we do not worship Melchizedek, but we do worship Christ of the order of Melchizedek, our great high priest. The discussion was brought up in reference to being misunderstood by others. Yes, this could be a real issue since back in the first century and today people misconstrued the writings of Paul. At the present time, we do not worship Melchizedek, but we do worship Christ of the order of Melchizedek as our great high priest. Yet he, Jesus Christ, is the Alpha and Omega, and Melchizedek was the Alpha prior to the fulfillment of the Omega, which can be summarized by what Paul stated as being the last facet of what defines Melchizedek. That last facet would be Melchizedek made like unto the Son of God. Yet the everlasting righteousness still applies to both the Alpha and Omega, because of the slain lamb prior to the foundation of the world, Revelation 13:8, and because Daniel 9's 70-week prophecy states that eternal righteousness was ushered in with the birth of Jesus Christ and then accomplished in its final goal of Melchizedek made like unto the Son of God, Hebrews 7:1-3, which is by way of Romans 1:3 and 4. The matter resides in Hebrews 5, where Melchizedek had to lower himself of his eternal identity to qualify. Whereas previous to that, Melchizedek provided eternal righteousness as the priest of God in reference to being slain prior to the foundation of the world. Revelation 13:8. When it was time for Satan to prove that he could be like the Most High by ascending to the northern universe, Isaiah 14:13, he failed since he and his angels were cast down. So the time would come for Melchizedek to prove his eternal righteousness, which would have to be victorious in two aspects. The second, which was proven when Michael, being the pre-incarnate Christ, himself defeated Lucifer in the angelic war of Revelation 12. Previous to that, it involved his decision to rescue the fallen human race after Adam sinned. Yet this was planned prior to the foundation of the world. When it was Satan's turn to disprove Christ's eternal righteousness, this came about by way of the fall of Adam. Fact is that if Christ turned down the matter of rescuing the fallen race, Satan would boast that Christ's eternal righteousness did not have the fullness of agape love, which is another facet of eternal righteousness, thus making him, Satan, the first fallen being to question God's eternal righteousness by having been able to secure a planet as well as life for himself and his fallen angels, as well as the fact that he would own everyone born on planet Earth after Adam's fall. It was this reasoning, wanting to be like the Most High, that made him believe that Christ would not challenge him and come to this dark world in order to pour out his life in agape love for the fallen race. Yet the promises of Genesis 3:15 would stand out as a prophetic witness that one day someone would arrive from the heavens and challenge the dominion of the evil one. Yet this fateful decision involved a qualification process of A, overcoming sin in the flesh, Revelation 3:21, as well as B, being born of the flesh according to the seed of David. This is the basic dictum of the Alpha and Omega as presented in Romans 1:3, and needs to be read by those who would claim that sonship was in the heavens prior to the incarnation. Michael the archangel. Many dismiss the matter of Michael's qualifications as being the pre-existent Christ, not realizing that in the Jewish writings, Melchizedek and Michael were closely intertwined and practically the same, and prayers, liturgies were offered up until Rabbinic Judaism put a stop to this and labeling it as blasphemous. In Daniel 12, Michael is the chief arbiter of the resurrection at the end of the age, yet he is revealed as Michael standing up. So who other than Christ can possibly stand up from his place of authority, which in Psalms 110, 1-4 is presented as David's Lord sitting at the right hand of God, being also God. A good place to begin is by asking the evangelicals why Michael is mentioned in Daniel 12 as arising from a place of authority and dealing with the topic of the resurrection, which is purely an act of the Creator and not that of a mere angel or powerful archangel. If Michael's role is misunderstood, then there is a major theological issue on account of two important facts. One, in Daniel 10, the angel Gabriel tells Daniel that Michael is Daniel's prince, which is usually a messianic term. Two, Michael appears as the arbiter of the resurrection, and his role in ancient Israel was that of lawyer or advocate. And when you transfer that title over the New Testament, it's the Holy Spirit, as in 2 Corinthians 3:16-17, as well as being the prince or prince of peace, a messianic title which equals the present kingdom of grace, thus fulfilling 2 Corinthians 3:16-17. And whenever they may turn unto the Lord, the veil is taken away, and the Lord is that Spirit. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Evangelicals use the book of Jude as a punching bag for negating Michael as the pre-incarnate Christ, not realizing that in the book of Zechariah 3, the angel of the Lord, who is recognized as being the pre-incarnate Christ, repeats the same phrase as mentioned in the book of Jude. The following verse reveals that the angel of the Lord is Yah, number 2. Zechariah 3. And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of Yahweh, and Satan standing at his right hand to be his adversary. And Yahweh said unto Satan, Yahweh rebuke thee, O Satan. Yea, Yahweh that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments, and was standing before the angel. And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with rich apparel. And I said, Let them set a fair clean mitre upon his head. So they set a clean mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of Yahweh was standing by. And the angel of Yahweh protested unto Joshua, saying, Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, If thou wilt walk in my ways, and if thou wilt keep my charge, then thou also shalt judge my house, and shalt also keep my courts, and I will give thee a place of access among these that stand by. Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men that are a sign. For behold, I will bring forth my servant the branch. For behold, the stone that I have set before Joshua, upon one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave the graving thereof, saith Yahweh of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. In that day, saith Yahweh of hosts, shall ye invite every man his neighbor, under the vine and under the fig tree. Jude. But Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing judgment, but said, The Lord rebuke thee. Jude provides a clue as to why Michael stated, The Lord rebuke thee, in reference to Satan trying to hold on to the body of Moses. He, Michael, being the arbiter of the resurrection and priest of eternal righteousness, had not yet died on the cross. Here again, many do not see the connection between 1 Thessalonians 4:16, the trumpet of the archangel, and its relationship to Daniel 12 when Michael stands up. The one who stands up and who is sitting at the right hand of the Father is Jesus Christ, previously known as Michael, the advocate of Israel. Hebrews 5:6-10, as he saith also in another place, Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek, who in the days of his flesh, having offered up prayers and supplication with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and having been heard for his godly fear, though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. And having been made perfect, he became unto all them that obey him the author of eternal salvation, named of God a high priest, after the order of Melchizedek. In dealing with the matter of Melchizedek, king of righteousness, the real topic is the eternal righteousness of the Lamb, which was slain prior to the foundation of the world, and who was David's Lord prior to the incarnation, Psalms 110, 1-4, as well as the fact that this individual, who lowered himself, Philippians 2, 5-10, to take the slave form of human genetics, was ushered in as eternal righteousness, as depicted in Daniel 9's 70-week prophecy, and is uniquely begotten Son of God, who fulfilled the concept and reality of true sonship on planet Earth, which consisted of one who would sit on the throne of David and who fulfills the prerequisites of the order of Melchizedek. That is why it is stated that a child is born, a son is given, and he should be called Everlasting Father. The reason being that this child who is born and a son is given, he is not believed to be an everlasting father by many, and the expression is seen by them in poetic terms, and this is for no simple reason, since the basis of this error stems from a wrong interpretation of the Shema of Deuteronomy 6:4, where the oneness of God is interpreted as being a singular individual, which excludes the references to the word Elohim, which implies plurality, as in Genesis 1:26. They assume the usage of the wrong word, implying that God is Yakid, a singular individual. Yet for some reason they use the word Akkad, which implies oneness, but in more than one. Yet they refuse to accept this fact and assume that both words literally mean one singular individual, thus rejecting all the available evidence from its usage in the Old Testament itself. The second reason is the assimilation of the Neoplatonism doctrine by way of the early Catholic Church Fathers, which also involved the teachings of Philo of Alexandria, that the universe emanated a son out of itself. This later became the doctrine of the eternal Son, and defines the so-called second person of the Godhead as the eternal Son of God. Final beliefs number 4. Everlasting Father of Isaiah 9, 6-7. And many people tend to take this statement from Isaiah lightly, since they believe in the concept of the existence of solely one God, as in Rabbinic Judaism, thus applying it to Hezekiah, or as a poetic term to describe either the Father or some other construct of their minds, not realizing that the reason as to why he has to fulfill that verse is because the order of Melchizedek requires it, since in order to qualify for that order, the Messianic king that will sit on the throne of planet Earth has to fulfill the requisites of each of the characteristics of the order, as listed in Hebrews 7:3, as well as the names mentioned in Isaiah 9. But to make things short for now, we will focus solely on Everlasting Father. The Apostle Paul tells us in Hebrews 7 the following. Hebrews 7. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. So if the Messiah is to be sitting on the throne of planet Earth by displacing Satan, who wanted to be like the Most High, then the Messiah himself had to be like the Most High. Philippians 2, 5-10, and the requirement is found in the requisites of the order of Melchizedek. No father or mother or genealogy, and not having beginning of days nor end of life, and results in the Messiah, Everlasting Father number 2. The order of Melchizedek banishes any ambiguity in reference to the title of Everlasting Father, as given to the Messiah in Isaiah 9, 6-7, which is confirmed in Psalms 110, 1-4. Whereas some view the conversation taking place in this verse as being proof of the incarnate sonship, nothing could be further from the truth, since the prerequisites of this order totally annul this false construct of pre-incarnate sonship, and establishes the everlasting nature of Melchizedek, as well as establishes forever his lowering of himself in order for the process of qualification of this order to take place in the form of the flesh of the human genetics, which previously was spirit, and then at the incarnation became a combination which is referred to as monogenes theos, uniquely begotten, Son of God, who possessing the eternal righteousness of Melchizedek, then brings in the qualification process of Melchizedek himself in the form of the monogenes theos combination, which results in the overcoming of sin in the likeness of human flesh and condemning sin in the flesh. This is why Jesus was tempted and offered all the kingdoms of this world by the evil one. Romans 1:3. In a unique form, Christ was born as Jesus Christ, which fulfills the dictum of Romans 1:3, which is Son of God according to the flesh, and then Romans 1:4, the retaking back of his former glory of Melchizedek, but now in the God-man combination, of which the human side, while present, is swallowed up by the eternal power of the original Melchizedek, thus completing what Jesus stated about himself in Revelation 22:13-16. I am Alpha and Omega, which means the first and the last. The eternal righteousness of the Lamb, with marks of slaughter, who is the root of David, the first or the Alpha. The root of anything is always the first. Whereas the Omega is referred to by Jesus as the offspring of David, this would be the last, since he is the final heir of the throne of David, as stated in Psalms 9:7, and is to sit eternally on that throne of God, which is seen in Revelation 22:1 and described as the throne of God and the Lamb. And this is the fulfillment of Isaiah 9:6-7. Michael. Up to now, neither Rabbinic Judaism, nor Catholicism, or Protestantism have figured out the role that the names in Isaiah 9 have to do with Jesus Christ in relation to Michael, who is Daniel's prince in Daniel 10. And the angel of the Lord who appeared to Manoah, Samson's father. This angelic figure asked and answered Manoah at the same time by stating, "Is my name too wonderful?" There is also the wonderful number in the book of Daniel, whose name is Palmoni, which is translated as the wonderful number. Counselor reveals the role of Michael in the Old Testament as the advocate of Israel, but is also revealed in the New Testament as Michael, who battled Satan's fallen angels, as well as the fact that he came to the aid of the angel Gabriel, who was being held up for 21 days by the prince of Persia. This harks back to the angelic war of Revelation 12, in which Michael defeats Lucifer and his angels. These references appear to make Michael the captain of the Lord's armies in the book of Joshua, or the Lord of hosts, in the vision of Isaiah in chapter 6, which the book of John 12 states as being the former glory of Jesus Christ as the Lord of hosts, captain of the Lord's armies. And it cometh to pass in Joshua's being by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, one standing over against him, and his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua goeth unto him, and saith unto him, Art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he saith, No, for I am prince of Yahweh's host. Now I have come. And Joshua falleth on his face to the earth, and doth obeisance, and saith to him, What is my Lord speaking unto his servant? It was in the final description of the Melchizedek that Satan's claim of wanting to be like the Most High was proven to be false. Melchizedek made like unto the Son of God. Conclusion: Hebrews 5 proved that his mission was successful, and the prince of this world was cast out. John 12:31. Eternal righteousness was ushered in with the birth of Jesus Christ, and then accomplished its final goal of Melchizedek, made like unto the Son of God. Ushering in everlasting or eternal righteousness. This is such an important point, ushering of eternal righteousness. It's overlooked and neglected from Daniel 9 and the 70 weeks. For eternal righteousness to be ushered in, it had to have existed from the eternal age and be without beginning, of and from an individual without any deviation or alterations, like emanation, since eternal righteousness cannot have a beginning. Daniel 9 doesn't convey eternal righteousness is only of the Ancient of Days, and that's a spoiler alert for the One Godders. Therefore, eternal righteousness equals Alpha and does not equal monotheism or Trinity. The true Christ said he was Alpha of John 1:1 without beginning, ushering in of eternal righteousness at Bethlehem. Jesus Christ, Alpha and Omega. Eternal righteousness could only be ushered via Mary and human genetics. That's the foundational truth of the Alpha and Omega, and its purpose with the first angel's warning. The anointing of the Most Holy of Daniel 9 could only authenticate one thing. The Most Holy Place was anointed by the high priest after the order of Melchizedek. Omega.